Well, I want to welcome everybody back to class. I hope you guys are doing well. I know that the semester's in full swing and there's a lot going on. Hope you didn't stay up too late last night to see the Dallas Cowboys beat the Giants. Unfortunately, I am not a Dallas Cowboy fan at all. In fact, it's one of the teams that I despise more than any other sports team. So it wasn't enjoyable for me to watch, but for those of you that aren't into football, then it doesn't matter anyway. So we're going to jump back in. If you have your work text, if you can access that, it'd be great to be able to pull that out. It would help with this section as we go through. The PowerPoints that I'm going to be posting in the lecture videos and I'm going to be sharing with you are going to follow directly in line with that work text, and so it may be helpful to make some notes in the outline. Just by way of announcement as well, I know that you are well into your project. The deadline for the first part of the project, section 1, which has a lot of preliminary information, was due last week, and I think almost everyone has turned that in. And then looking forward to September 10th, which is next Monday, is our next deadline, and I'm going to give you until actually the 15th to get that in. So I'm going to give you an extra 5 days to get that in. So I'll post that on Moodle as well, just to let you know. So deadline number 2 will be due on September the 15th, just to give you a little bit more time. I know that that may be beneficial for several of you. Some of you have already turned in your assignment, and I will post a video lecture or just an explanation video of some of the aspects of the project here and talk through it a little bit, and we'll be posting that later on, probably this weekend. So maybe that'll be helpful as we work through some of those things. And lots of questions have been asked, but I'm sure there's more questions out there. So it'd be great just to give me an opportunity just to go over the project with you. So well, let's get started here today. We are in chapter 1 of that work text. I believe it starts on page 12. And what you'll want to do is just follow along, like I said before. So as we talk about programming in youth ministry, and I know for Sarah, she's doing children's ministry as well as Wes as well. And we just want to make sure that we understand the preliminary foundations that we've already talked about. Youth ministry has a foundation. Programming and planning in youth ministry. Planning, it has a biblical foundation, and it's not just something we do just so we can control situations. It's a reflection of how God, from the very beginning, has done and created who we are and what we have, and how He continues to lead us. He has a plan for our lives, and our goal in what we do every single day should not be eclipsed by our focus on God's plan for us and seeking out that plan, spending time with Him, as well as seeking to build His house His way and not necessarily our way, not according to the latest book that's out or latest seminar, but according to what He calls us to do first and foremost. And then we take wisdom and discernment and guidance and advice from godly leaders who have great experience and wisdom in these areas, especially as it relates to local church youth ministry, and for a couple of you there, children's ministry as well. So as we move forward into chapter 1, we're going to look at programming and specifically some programming and planning overview. And let's take a look at your notes there. There's a few preliminary questions that I would throw out, and these questions would relate specifically to what are programs. What are the misconceptions about programs? 3 types of programs, and we're going to discuss those and give you an idea. This will be helpful in your project. Section there in numbers 4, 5, and 6. That's where this will be very helpful. What are the 3 types of planning? And we're going to look at those here in this session here today. So let's get started right off the bat. What a program is not. Let's talk about that first. A lot of times we see that people want activities in churches, and although youth ministry has gone through a very huge change over the last 4 or 5 years, for the better, honestly, with a greater emphasis on transformational discipleship through our ministries, as well as equipping families to be stronger and parents to be integrally and primarily involved in the discipleship of their own kids, whether they are or not, rest with their responsibility. But as leaders in the church, we have to continue to help facilitate that and encourage families in that direction, as well as looking at why we do what we do in ministry, and it helps strengthen what we do in ministry when we have that purpose that I shared in the previous session. And so when we think about programs, a lot of times I sit with friends and programs catch a bad rap. A lot of times programs end up being relegated to activities, busy work, just stuff that fills a calendar. And there was a season and a time in youth ministry for many of us that we jumped into youth ministry to do things with teenagers. And we enjoy being with teenagers. And if you don't enjoy being with teenagers, you probably should take a hard look at why you're doing youth ministry. Or if you don't like being around kids, why you're doing children's ministry. But I think when we think about programs and what they are, it helps us to come back and figure out what they are not. Or, better stated maybe, what they're not intended to be, although they sometimes get labeled this way. And you can see that near your notes. A lot of times people think of programs as rewards. And while none of these descriptors are completely wrong, keeping programs as a part of your ministry for the sole purpose of these 5 things, and others for that matter, is wrong. And without having a biblical aim and foundation as well as a purpose, programs are just whatever you want them to be and just fill the time. So programs are not rewards. A lot of times people think they are. Programs are not necessarily meant to be a party. Although parties we have, and we have those parties as a part of a whole total maybe event or program or something in our church or student ministry to celebrate. Celebrations are great. But programs are not just meant to have parties. When the holidays rolls around, you have a Christmas party. Well, why do you have a Christmas party? And part of our philosophy here in the International Center for Youth Family Ministry here at Southern Seminary and Boyce College is that even if you're going to have a Christmas party, that Christmas party should fit in a total scheme and a total purpose of your student ministry that flows with the mission statement of the student ministry, which in tandem works with the mission statement of the local church. So it's not that you can't have a party. It's just that your leaders especially need to understand how that party, how that celebration fits with its connection to another event, another program, or in the total program. Maybe it stands alone. Programs are also not meant just to be recreation, which can be sometimes confusing to a lot of people when we have sports programs or when we do athletic, endeavors like Upward or some other things. It's not just meant to be recreation. We can have recreation, but once again, there must be a purpose serving the greater mission of that student ministry. Time killers. Oh, I hate this one. This one is the hardest one, especially if it's not done with excellence, to get people on board with because they don't see a purpose in any way, shape, or form. It's just killing time. And then lastly, a babysitting service. Oftentimes, churches will come to the youth pastor or to a volunteer, and they will solicit an opportunity for them to do something for the teenagers because the parents are there for something else. And so they'll call up the youth pastor and they'll say, can you do something for the teenagers while the parents are involved in another meeting at the church? And so programs are not meant to be babysitting, okay? So there's some key things. So it's just a few misconceptions about programming, and it can help us to clarify what a program is. Now, I'm not saying that people don't operate this way, that there aren't churches and student ministries out there that use programs not on purpose but to fulfill some of these misconceived roles. But that's not who we're about, or that's not what we're about. And that's definitely not who we're about, because that's not what God calls us to. Well, simply defined, as you look in your work text there, simply defined, programs fall into 2 categories. One, macro programs. The entire ministry vehicle, everything done during the ministry year to fulfill my objectives for my student ministry, my youth group. It's a bird's eye view. You get the total picture, comprehensive picture, your macro programs. And so what would a macro program be? Well, we're going to look at some of those in just a second. The second type or category of programs are micro programs. You can see that right there in your notes. You're reading it before I get to it, I'm sure. One activity of the ministry vehicle which has a specific objective and is proposed, organized, prepared, and presented in a professional manner. Now, I hope you underline those words in your work text. Proposed, organized, prepared, and presented in a professional manner. We're going to add to that list in just a second. We're going to add the word evaluation. That it must be proposed, organized, prepared, and presented and evaluated in a professional manner as well. And so we're going to look at those 2 categories of programs, macro, and that's how we're going to look at what we're talking about here for this course, and micro programs. Now, when we get into programs, we have 2 categories, but then there's 3 types of programs, okay? Because, not every program is the same. It may fall into a macro category or micro, but not every program is meant to be the same. Some things are standalone. Some things are connected. Some things are for shorter period of time. Some things are for longer period of time. So for all practical purposes, we employ three types of programs with these labels. Okay. Number one, events. Events. We're talking about an activity presented within a short period of time, usually less than 48 hours, but almost always, well, usually less than 24 hours, but almost always less than 48 hours, such as a theme or a leisure day. Now, what are themes and leisure day? Well, you can see that there in your notes. I'm not sneaking anything by you here in this lecture. A theme would involve the environment, costumes, decoration, games, foods, music, skits, a message. You could do a Western jamboree and yuck it up, or here at the seminary in the fall here, we're having a Buffalo Bills Wild West show as our fall festival tonight. Well, that's a theme activity. That's a theme event. It's going to be in a few hours this Friday evening. If you view this and you're within driving distance, it'd be great. Bring your family to that. It's all free. There's food. There's all kinds of entertainment and things for the kids to do. It's just an opportunity to pull in the seminary community together, so I'd encourage you to do that. If you're watching this from Germany, Eric, then obviously you're not going to be here for that Buffalo Bill Wild West show. But those are the kinds of things that's involved with a theme. You can see there, you can do Christmas parties, and you have a parent appreciation night, or maybe a senior banquet. There's all kinds of things, stuff going around holidays. Those are themed. Leisure days, amusement parks, water parks, doing overnight activity. I know that doesn't sound like a leisure day, overnight activity. Taking your group to a concert when Toby Mac comes into town with Winter Wonderslam, or Casting Crowns comes in and for a concert with their tour. Whatever. Maybe it's another band, and whichever you pick. I would definitely try to jump on a concert if Lecrae came through, Tripley, or Shobrock, or any of those guys came through. Leisure day, though. So those are the types of events. They should happen in a short period of time, okay? The second type of program is what we call a marathon. And a marathon is a continuous multiple-day activity, such as trips, retreats, camps, D-Nail weekends, which would maybe not be a trip, but it still would operate like a retreat. And so we're looking at marathons. You get your 3-day retreats. You do ski retreats. You do something in the summer, maybe back to school, maybe a fall retreat, a winter camp that's compressed, and you do 3 days. But you're talking about a continuous multiple-day trip or event or activity, or program. Number 3 is a series. Now, a series is not hard to figure out. It has to be program that has multiple occurrences that all connect together, okay? A network of weekly or monthly events. Sunday school, small groups, accountability groups, discipleship groups, whatever you want to call them, community groups. Those discipleship opportunities that connect, they're weekly, and there's more going on in between each week. Campus clubs, if you do a high school campus club, First Priority, FCA, Young Life, Youth for Christ, maybe you partner with some of them. Maybe you've developed a way to get on campus and meet with students on your own, which I've done in the past and had some very productive times doing that. Some other things, outreach or ministry teams are also a series. In the student ministries where I've led in the past, we've had ministry teams, and the ministry teams have their own meeting once a week for training, as well as for rehearsals and practices and preparing for ministry opportunities. So those are the 3 types of programs. If you remember, really quick, the 3 types of programs: events, marathon, series. Events, marathon, series, okay? And your project outline includes all 3 of these, okay? An event, a marathon, and a series. So maybe that'll help out some of what you've already been doing so far. Planning and overview. What are we looking at with planning and overview? With planning and overview, we look at planning in 4 different categories. You can see that there in your notes. Let me overview them, then I'm going to go back through and fill in the details. We're going to look at 4 different types of planning. We're going to look at first milestone planning, which is your initial 3 to 5 years, looking out 3 to 5 years. And so is a little bit long-range planning, okay? Then we look at macro planning, and macro planning is an annual plan. We look at the whole year coming up. Then we look at micro planning, and we start planning out specific programs, specific events, specific marathons, specific series that make up the whole macro program. And then the last one that we look at is mobile planning. Every season of student ministry, semester in, semester out, in between semesters, during the summer, introduces us to information about our teenagers, about our families, about our community, or maybe our country or the world, and events happen or take place that cause us to take a step back and to adjust maybe some of the things we're doing in our student ministry. So that's mobile planning. Well, let's look at some of the definitions of these three things here. Milestone planning is a 3 to 5 year. It's a long-range planning that refers to specifically mapping out the direction of your youth ministry in general terms. It's difficult to predict the needs of each year of your group 5 years down the road, but that's why it has to be very general. Okay, so you can get as specific as you like, but in the end, you're going to have to be rather general with your 3 to 5 year projection. But you can also dream. You can use this for vision moments and say, here's where we are over the next 5 years. If we take the right steps in our plan, okay, you remember one of the axioms of youth ministry, plan your work and work your plan, which is also connected to plan now, pastor later. So as you work out a milestone plan, 3 to 5 years, you've got a general plan. When someone asks, hey, in 2 years, why don't we go to this mission trip? You can pull out and say, our goals and where we were headed for the next 3 to 5 years had us actually connecting over the next 3 years with another ministry, and it may fit better if we adjust and do something with that plan. Or you may say, I was unaware, and maybe we need to take a look out and see where we can place that type of ministry opportunity for our student ministry. So milestone planning. The second type of planning is what we call macro planning, and we're looking at the whole year. Now, this one is where it really gets fun. I got to be honest with you. This is one of the things I love to do. You need to do this with volunteers. Get 2 or 3 volunteers in a room. Maybe you can, rent a facility that's near you, or just a meeting room where you got some food and you can have some lunch brought in and you can meet during the day, or maybe you do it for breakfast, or maybe you can have it at the church facility. But do something where you can really let people spread out, where you've got some dry erase boards or that sticky paper that you can rip off the easel there, and you can stick it on the wall as you talk about different aspects of what you're doing throughout the year. But macro planning can be a blast, and we're going to split that up in the next video section, and I'll show you how you can macro plan in several easy steps. When we look at macro planning, we look at really 3 key tools for macro planning. One is forecasting, and we ask, what is the state of your youth group today, and what should it be tomorrow? We also ask, what's the state of our church? What should it be? That doesn't mean that you're the one that determines the direction of your church, but it also doesn't mean that you shouldn't be oblivious to what needs to be happening in the church and how the student ministry fits with what needs to be happening in the church. And it's great if staffs can do this together. But this is with you and your volunteer, your leadership team. And if you don't have a huge leadership team, then find one person. Find another person in the community. Maybe it's another youth pastor, hopefully, and you can sit down and you guys can talk about your macro plans together. You don't have to do the same things, but it would really encourage you to be able to find the opportunities to share in that. The second type of macro planning is what we call brainstorming, which is a blast, and creatively thinking through what's going on with your student ministry, okay? And then just coming up with ideas, finding ideas, macro planning, just brainstorming, finding things that there's really no bad idea. And that's just one of the things that we do. We just get in there with a dry erase board and we start coming up with ideas and things that we'd like to see used in our student ministry. And as you brainstorm, sometimes you can automatically see how it connects with the overall purpose and vision, and sometimes you don't. So you just mark it down. You just get a huge grocery list. You do a brainstorming session. You'll see how this connects here in just a few minutes. Then the third type of macro planning is mapping. Is what we call mapping. And that's your calendar design, your budget design, your staffing and volunteers. You map out the calendar. You map out the budget that that helps to fund that calendar. And you also look at your volunteers and your leadership, and you project out how do you plan on accommodating or filling and resourcing and supporting what's going on with your programs for the year with finding the right volunteers. And so that's what we call, mapping, okay? And then the final area that we look at is called micro planning, okay? These are programs conducted for every single event. So you got your macro planning with forecasting and brainstorming and mapping. You got your milestone planning, which is long range. And then you have your micro planning, which you start getting into each and every program. You got to call and reserve transportation. You got to make sure the camp is booked. You got to find the meeting place where you're going to have some Valentine's Day event, or you're going to have to start making sure you've got a process for when you're going to call and start contacting homes for a disciple weekend who can be host homes. Lining up speakers for certain things, or planning out the promotion. By the way, in your project, one of the things that's required for the next deadline, which I've extended to September the 15th, one of the things that's required for that deadline is your program proposal worksheets, one for numbers 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so you're just proposing something. You don't have to do all the stuff for it yet. You're just proposing it. The other thing is a task list, and it's just an Excel spreadsheet. And what you do is all these things that you do to get to make that individual program happen, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on your project outline. Everything you do, from the time that you make your first phone call for reservations, or the time that you set up for promo, or to mail out something, or to email something, or to send out, Twitter messages or Facebook messages, or whatever the process is, recruiting and training volunteers, or all of the logistics. We live here in Louisville. UPS is here. They're all about logistics. Your event task list is all about logistics, where you chart how far out. You start with the farthest week out at the top of that task list. And so if you're a year away, you start with week 52 and you start counting it down to 51 until you get to the bottom of that task list, and that is game time. That is the eagle is landing at week 0. And so what you do is you chart out by categories: promotion, planning, staffing, all of the things, and you categorize. You can come up with the categories, but you talk about what has to be done in a brief statement. You talk about the time that it needs to be done, give an actual date, and then who's going to be in charge of it. It may be you, or it may be another volunteer. That's what you do in the micro planning. You plan all of those things, okay? And then number 4, and how we do that. We propose, we organize it, we prepare it, and we present it, then we evaluate it. POPPE. It's not supposed to spell anything, so don't try to create it. You can try to make it up if you want. It was never intended to spell anything. Propose, organize, prepare, present, and evaluate. And it's really interesting as we think about some of those things. We're going to look at it in some detail, and I'm going to give you an example in a coming chapter here about what it really looks like when you propose, organize, prepare, present, and evaluate. Then we get to the last type of planning, and that is mobile planning. That is done in the moment, conducted as needed, and it's in reaction to immediate changes in the culture and condition of the community, your church, your student ministry, maybe families that are related to that, and that's when you make some adjustments. Okay, so sometimes a tragedy happens, or sometimes just an unexpected celebration is needed for whatever reason. Or maybe you need to call people to prayer, or maybe it's a time for training or equipping or addressing other issues. That's mobile planning. So mobile planning can only really be done if the other types of planning have been done. If you haven't done your micro, your macro, and your milestone planning, it's very difficult to do mobile planning because you're kicking something out, but you really didn't have a plan anyway. And so now you just kind of been flying by the seat of your pants. So if you have that macro and that micro going, then you're able to mobile plan and adjust some things, and you can see how it fits together in the macro plan and make some adjustments. Well, that's all we've got for this particular session. I'm trying to keep it under 30 minutes because I know your time is valuable. Please go ahead and post things on the Ask the Professor link, and I hope these sessions are somewhat helpful, if not very helpful, to understanding some of the material. and I will put a forum discussion up related to this video session, and you will then see some other stuff. Once again, I am going to post a video that walks through your project outline, and I'll try to fill in and answer some questions that are commonly asked when I teach this class. So have a great day and weekend, and we will see you in the next segment.